I think one of the best things to do to get involved with photography, and there's two types. There's like, I want to be the person that makes a bunch of pictures and has a bunch of followers on Instagram. And then there's people that are like, I actually want to do this. I actually want to make a living doing photography. And I guess obviously taking a lot of pictures is always important, but I think it's also important to start thinking about who can you find to be a mentor? You know, how can I work with people that are farther along on the path that I can learn from quickly? You know, not quickly, but how can I learn from them and, you know, get to know them and find out how this business really works? Because they, it sounds kind of cliche, but the photography is only half of it. You know, the business side of it is another half of this art form. And working with people that are really successful is a really great way to learn how to become successful. I've found that a lot, and I still reach out to friends and colleagues and people just to pick their brain and stuff. And you know, I'll still work on shoots sometimes with friends, you know, that are, you know, they've got a big shoot, and I'll work with them occasionally just to kind of pick up some little pointers here and there, you know. Not so much for financial reasons, but just more to just always tune myself into what's in, new lighting techniques, new pieces of camera equipment, that kind of stuff. And again, we can start talking about online things, you know, following good people on Instagram that are really doing cool stuff, and, you know, doing Google searches, finding out other photographers that are doing great stuff, getting inspired by other photographers, I think is a good way. Well, back to that is, you know, we're living in this period of time where we're just being so influenced by, you know, pictures constantly. You know, I think just driving from Inglewood to here, we drove 15 miles or whatever through LA, not through the freeway. And I mean, if you really start counting the billboards and this and that, and if you have a phone and it's bleeping and the radio's gone, I mean, we're just being influenced constantly by so much media. And photography is a huge side of that because you can tell a story in under 1 second. So photography is really great for that, right? You can take a picture that can really tell a whole story. Before, you know, everyone had a digital camera, there was a little bit more mystery involved, and there was a lot more, the technical side was a little more valuable, right? So you needed to know how to expose film correctly and lighting and these kind of things. You didn't have an instantaneous, you know, when you set your flash off, you didn't know. Like you had to know. And so there was a little bit more technique behind it. You know, people had to know a lot more technique. You know, nowadays, cameras, you get an instantaneous gratification. You can see whether it's too bright or too dark pretty quick. So that's one of the major differences I would see. But yeah, just being bombarded by imagery all day long, it's crazy. It's really crazy. I mean, I personally really love older pictures of sports stars that can never be replicated, older pictures of musicians that can never be replicated. You know, I just think that stuff is so cool. You know, they're just so, you know, let's just take like that iconic picture of Michael Jordan getting ready to slam it, you know what I mean? Like, we all know that shot, you know, he's just like this, tongue out. It'll never happen again. It can never be made again. And so I like imagery like that. People who are just so dedicated to their craft, you know, they went around photographing things before anybody was photographing them. You know, I just think that is so cool, you know. There's some sports guys out there that are just like that, those famous pictures of Ali. I don't know if you've seen the picture. It's like straight down on the ring, and Ali's like this, and I don't know who it was, but they're laying out flat on the ground. It's just such a cool picture. To have that foresight to put the camera up top, it happened. You know, older pictures from the 60s, you know, old pictures of the Beatles hanging out at their house, you know, see them as like real people. I love pictures like that. It's just, you'll never be able to replicate, you know, 1968 again. You know what I mean? I just think that's so cool. You know, my ego sometimes will get in that game, which is an unending game, like comparative mind. Look at that. Why does that person have followers? You know, does it really matter? Who knows? So you can kind of separate it into two. There's people that make a living, and then there's people that are making pictures and they have followers or whatever they're doing. So where it gets a little more complicated is, if I'm an art director and I want to hire someone to do a shoot, and I want to be able to do drawings and spend a lot of time creating what the image is going to look like, and I go out looking for photographers. Oftentimes, I'm probably not going to go to that person that just has a lot of followers. I'm probably going to go find someone who has a lot of experience. I would go to their website and really do a little more historically, like, well, okay, this guy can really, or this girl can really replicate what she's doing all over the place. Look at that, she has years of doing it. You know, whereas like, just because someone has an iPhone doesn't mean you want to hire them for the next campaign, even though Apple just did it by using the iPhone pictures. That's kind of a one-off, but I think you understand what I'm saying. There's a difference between a person that makes a bunch of pictures, especially like girls in bikinis or dudes that work out a lot. You know what I mean? And more power to them. Like, that's their thing, and like that's not my competition. That's not who I'm up against. Well, I mean, gosh, I just feel like, a picture's a picture. You know what I mean? There's great, if everyone has a camera, everyone can take a good picture. You know what I mean? You give 1,000 cameras away, people are going to get some good pictures out of it. And doesn't necessarily mean they're, going to make a living at it or be a competition or I guess what happens is that we're just so like our society is set up in such a way that we are just so bombarded by so much imagery, so then it actually waters down imagery. Does that make sense? There's just so much of it right now, and it's so fast. Like, people want it faster and faster and faster. And so, some amazing pictures get taken and they get forgotten pretty quickly, That's why I always have a lot of respect for a lot of documentary photographers. They're doing it because they want to influence the world. They want to change the world. They want to open people's eyes to what's going on, And so they put themselves in some really dangerous positions, going to war-torn places or spending long periods of time in some pretty far-out situations. I have a lot of respect for that. I mean, I don't know. I try my best not to judge. You know what I mean? So I'm glad I don't do it. I don't want to walk up to people that are eating lunch and take their picture and try to catch them at the beach without their shirt on and all that. I couldn't. That's just not what I want to do. And if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. I guess when you're famous, you sign up for that. It's unfortunate, because it seems as though there's no time off. Do you know what I mean? And that's where I think it gets a little bit gray. You start flying over someone's house, like, it's their house. Like, give them a break. So, I think there's some pretty invasive photography that's going on. I think they're going to have to put some rules down, because I think what's going to happen is they're going to start I think they already realize this, that someone with really bad intentions can start flying things that can be explosive or that kind of thing, and it just becomes, I think it becomes too dangerous. I think, and I think they're actually kind of dangerous. Like, if you don't really know what you're doing, I think you can really hurt people. And especially if you're going to fly around bigger cameras and stuff, I think the blades on those things can hurt you. And and then just, any person can go by it without taking a class. I think you're going to run into some legal issues, I think. I think they're going to have to shut it down or get it really, they're going to have to really control it somehow. I just don't think they can just let anybody start flying drones around.
Thank you for watching A Wise Way. Subscribe to stay updated, share to pass the knowledge, or view our other videos on the left.